When you're at the seaside on an overcast day, it's really easy to end up with photos with a completely blank expanse of sky in the background. Take this view for example. I really like the pier curving round here, some nice leading lines, but what is it leading to? If I expose for that pier, well, I'm going to end up with a mostly featureless sky. If you're lucky, there might be a few different shades, but I really want something interesting to fill that big blank space at the top. And as luck would have it, this sculpture is really going to do the trick. So what I'm really looking for is something to fill that blank space in the sky. It could be the overhanging branches from a tree or perhaps the edge of a shop, almost anything at all. I found this sculpture here and I really like this hole in the middle. I'm going to use that to frame my shot. If I do it from this distance though, I'm getting more of the sculpture and less of the background. And as a consequence, the sea and the sky have become completely overexposed. It's just pure white. Now that's still quite a nice picture, so I'm going to take it anyway. But what I want to do is fill more of the frame with the sea and the sky so that it exposes properly for it. Now, in order to get the camera to expose for the background, I need to fill more of the frame with it. So just get a bit closer. And as I move closer in here and more of the frame is filled with the sea and the sky beyond it, you can see that now the camera is exposing for the background elements and you can see some clouds in the sky and some color to the sea. This to me is exactly what I was looking for. And the only thing I have to watch out for now is the actual framing, because we've got some lines here. And if they're slightly rotated or at an angle, it's not going to look very nice. So if I move the camera from side to side, you can see this line in the paving stone goes a little to the side as well. I want that to be pointing straight down the middle, about there. And then I want to look at the sea. I want to make sure that this horizon line is completely straight and going across the middle of that circle. That looks okay to me now. So the only other thing I have to watch out for is to make sure I have the same amount of the sculpture on both sides, although I could always crop that later on when I post it. Now I'm going to take a few shots here because from experience I know that sometimes you end up with some that are a little bit biased towards one side than the other. And for this kind of shot I want it to be completely centered. If you do like it to be a bit to the side though, I would advise going a lot to the side and going for a really jaunty angle. But for this, it's all about the geometry, the balance. That looks pretty good to me, so I'm just going to take a few shots. And I think that's going to look really nice when posted as a square format. This is the shot I took pointing the camera straight out to sea, and I quite like the leading lines, the curve of this pier here. But you can see how the top half of the frame is pretty blank and featureless. Some overcast skies are just completely white. I've got some clouds here, but I'd really like something a bit more interesting to frame it. Here I've used the sculpture to frame the view beyond it, although this picture is more about the sculpture than that view. You can see that the camera is exposed for it. It looks quite interesting. I quite like these lines pointing in towards the view, but the view itself is so small and completely overexposed in the background, so it's focusing your attention on nothing really. In this image, I've moved closer so that more of the frame is devoted to the background view. That is really what this picture is all about. I'm only using the sculpture here as a frame. You can see that I've made sure that the gap on both sides is pretty even, so I shouldn't need to crop that horizontally. I've been careful with the positioning of the paving stone so it points straight up the middle, and you've got the horizon line of the sea beyond. And because the camera is now exposed on that background, you can see some color and detail, and that for me is a much more interesting picture than the first one that I showed where you had that big blank expanse of sky. And this will crop really nicely into a square if you like to post in that shape.